In this video, I'm going to teach you how to create hand-drawn elements and add them to a digital image. So I'm going to show you how to print a hidden line image and how to use the laws of perspective to create a hand-drawn element to be used in a digital rendering using the hidden line image as an underlay. Now, what you're seeing here is the finished product, but I'm going to actually work backwards and show you how I did it. So what you're seeing here, just to start, is like one of those cool dining pods. You might have seen them in an image of maybe a restaurant interior, but they're a cool way to create a sense of enclosure within a space. And so this dining room, we've already established as very unique. And so I wanted to add this in. Now, I specifically chose this shape because it's a complex curve. And what a complex curve means is that it's curving on the y-axis, so it's curving as it goes up, and then it's curving around against the x-axis. So it's really kind of just curving in two different directions, and that's so hard to do in any digital software. It's really difficult to do it in Revit, and so these types of elements and curvaceous ceiling treatments and organic curves in an interior are really fun to include, but they're really hard to draw in a digital software. And so that's why I chose to show you how to draw it by hand and then incorporate it into your digital rendering. So just to work backwards, one thing that I do want to draw your attention to is I have many layers of tracing paper. And so I've got these mounted to my drafting surface with drafting dots. And I just used a bunch of layers because I thought if I messed up, then at least that way I wouldn't have to start from the very beginning. I would be able to just start from the previous layer. So what you're seeing here is a printout of a hidden line drawing of the dining room. And so I just have set the view to hidden line and printed it out full size to fit on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. And it doesn't really matter what scale it is because we're going to stretch and manipulate it within our portfolio. So that's the first thing I did. The second thing I did was I drew lines indicating where the vanishing points can be, and they're a little bit far off on the left and right side of this perspective, but all I did was just brought my ruler, you can use your T-square, and just align it with some lines that you already have on the digital rendering. And just, you can see I connected this one, and that's how I got the vanishing point over here. The vanishing point on the left side is actually off of my drafting surface. And so I got the lines to converge over here as close to the edge of my drawing as possible, or on the edge of my board as possible. And then I just did a little tick mark at the very edge to show where the vanishing point almost is. And so there's gonna be a little bit of estimation with that. Then what I did was I got a big black Sharpie and I used my ruler, my triangle, my T-square to draw the box that this dining pod is going to ship in. And so I just drew that with really thick black Sharpie so that I could see everything. And so you can see this is the front of the box and the side of the box, the ground lines up here, again using the vanishing point. Then I added another layer of tracing paper and I drew the box that this dining pod would ship in again. And then, similar to how we did it earlier, in order to draw a curved object on a flat surface, I created this series of lines that's going to allow me to see where a circle or an ellipses would go in perspective. And so the first thing I did was I drew an X from corner to corner here, and on the top and bottom, so ceiling and floor, so you can see there's an X. Where they intersected, I drew a line from that point towards the vanishing point, backwards and forwards until it hit the edges of the ceiling. Same thing with the edges of the floor. So you can see here, this is the point where they intersected. And then I connected this back to the vanishing point. Okay. And then You can see here that I also did the same thing going to the right vanishing point. And so you can see here, I extended from that point over to my vanishing point, ceiling and floor. And so once I had those guidelines in place, I was able to see on the floor where I could draw this ellipse. So then the last thing I did was I connected the center point for that rectangle on the ground to the ceiling. And from there, I was ready to start kind of sketching where this dining pod might be located.